Gone live. I think we got it. It's streaming now.
Yeah, Scott, we're on. We're good to go.
Can you see us
Yep.
on YouTube? Now to get the business of this meeting, that's going to be fun. Good deal. Teresa, I'm going to hang this phone up, and I think we're all connected. Sure, you're co-hosting now too, so you can elevate folks if we need to, or acknowledge or do whatever you need to do to get people heard. Got it? Thanks. Sure, you're co-hosting now too, so you can elevate folks if we need to, or acknowledge or do whatever you need to do to get people heard. Got it? Thanks.
David, I like your background.
I'd like to try to convince you that's the shoreline of the Barron River, but I probably couldn't.
David, I like your background.
I'd like to try to convince you that's the shoreline of the Barron River, but I probably couldn't. Why are we on delayed broadcast here?
David, I like your background.
No, it's going to keep doing that.
Shoreline of the Barron River, but I probably couldn't.
I think if people are watching the YouTube feed while we're on the
Why
call,
are we on delayed broadcast?
that's why. So they're picking. It gets delayed through YouTube.
No, it's going to keep doing that.
Yeah. So either mute your phone or mute the Zoom feed or mute the YouTube.
No, it's going to keep doing that. Thank you, Greg Hardison. That was my fault. Sorry about that. One more problem we're having. Sorry, Tommy can't get on. Teresa, if you can hear me, can you send him the meeting ID? All right. Thanks, everybody, for your patience as we try to get this all connected.
Scott, this is Tip Richmond. Can you hear me?
I can, sir. Yes.
Okay, great. Okay, I'll mute then now. Okay, thanks.
Yeah, sorry, folks. We're still having a hard time getting Tommy logged on. So let me see if I can figure out what our problem is.
I'm pretty amazed that there are 26 of us all signed up, with our pictures and everything. That's as many as I've had on a Zoom where you could see everybody and that everyone could participate. Pretty cool.
All right, hopefully we've got it figured out. Just resent Tommy the link, and so give us a few more minutes and we'll get, because he's starting us off.
So Scott, this is Tip. I'm guessing this wasn't in the job description you signed up for one week.
No, I think they put it as other duties as assigned, right? Isn't that the,
Well,
MMO?
my children think I'm a Neanderthal because I didn't even know what Zoom was until 5 days ago when my college classmates wanted to do a Zoom cocktail hour on Saturday night. I didn't know what they were talking about.
Believe it or not, Teresa and I and Greg, we've been practicing for like the last, I don't know, 20, 30 minutes and trying to get things. I thought we had all the kinks worked out, but until everybody logs on, we just didn't know what was going to end up happening.
This is
I'm
Mike
impressed.
Berry. I should caution you not to use a mouse and drink at the same time.
Yeah. Well, it depends on how long this lasts.
That's true.
This is Geneva Paris. I hear you all. Do you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Hello?
We do hear you.
You do good. This is good. I can see you too, whether you're drinking or not.
I have my first cocktail party by Zoom tonight.
Well, all my morning
Ah,
Zoom meetings
What
have
are you
my
serving?
Beer from Hopkinsville Brewing Company, of course.
Oh, of course.
I thought that's what we did every day when Andy came on, had happy hour.
Mm.
God, I interviewed a nurse practitioner today who's running the drive-through testing site in Hopkinsville. And I asked her if she would consider keeping a journal and let me meet up with her on the other side of all this. And she said, I've already started a journal, which was exciting to hear.
Well, I have enjoyed the Chronicle. Thank you, Jennifer.
Yeah. It's kind of bizarre. I'm covering the biggest story of my life from my kitchen table because I don't leave the house unless I absolutely have to.
Well, you're doing a good job.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
We had somebody? Yeah, I don't know what Zoom protocol is. I mean, the president he's trying to get started.
I don't know about the rest of you, but I've enjoyed seeing the background in homes of all these reporters and late night people. And just, I was looking at Alcindor reporting last night, and I was going, I've read that book and that book and that book. So it's sort of been fun.
I like David Lee's background.
Yeah.
Let's go there.
Mm,
Day.
yeah, it's nice.
It's Croatia.
Cynthia, it's Mike Berry. I used to be the CEO at the Kentucky Derby Festival. I should have hanging in my background your poster signed that I have from you.
Oh, gosh. We've known each other a few years, Mike.
That's right. It's one of my favorites. It literally is hanging in my son's bedroom down the hallway.
Well, thank you.
Just to keep everybody updated, because I believe since we're conducting an open meeting, that since we do have somebody who is trying, board member who is trying to log on and do both video and stuff, that we have to wait and suspend the meeting until we reestablish that connection. If not, I'll look to see if maybe Jennifer can get us going as our first vice president. I know she's been warmed up in the bullpen for this.
It looks like Tommy's here.
Is he here?
He was just here on audio a second ago. He's not on again.
Teresa said he was here, but he'll be back.
He was
on.
here. He was muted.
I think he's trying to log in from a phone, which could be causing some problems.
Scott, it's Mike Berry again. One of the changes that just came across in some of the legislation that was passed the last day of the session only requires either video or audio instead of both. So if you have a problem and he needs to just be on by audio, that's acceptable now under the emergency order.
Gotcha. All right. Thank you for sharing that. I'll make sure that we get that to him, and then maybe we can ask Jennifer. Jennifer, I don't know if you'd be prepared to run through the agenda.
Boy, can I admit that I'm trying to call it up right now. Hold on.
I tell you what, why don't we go ahead and let Jennifer start us off? And I don't know if you've got an agenda in front of you. If not, our first order of business was to conduct a roll call of all the folks who are attending. And so if you wouldn't mind, Jennifer, do you have that in front of you, or would you like me to run through that?
I've got the agenda in front of me.
Okay.
And so I think the proper thing is to call this meeting of the Kentucky Historical Society Governing Board open. And what is the least clumsy way to do a roll call?
I have a list right here, and I'll read it off. And if you just give me an I or a here, and then we'll move through it pretty quick. I think I know everybody that's on there. The other thing I wanted to remind everybody is, don't forget, if you've joined us late, we are streaming live via YouTube on a public channel, so that we've invited our members and any guests that want to join us and watch the proceedings to do so. I thought this was a great way for us to engage our members in a way that we typically don't do, since they have to drive to Frankfurt to attend our meetings. But having this platform gives us a chance to let them hear from us directly. So just a reminder of that. So I'll begin off, and Teresa, I don't know if you can hear me, if you're live on the audio.
Said she's got it.
She's got it. Great. So I'll read through, and Teresa, if you'll record for me. Macaulay Adams.
Here.
Anthony Apro.
Here.
Mindy Barfield.
Here.
Becky Bowling. Jennifer Brown.
Here.
Teresa Brown.
Here.
Emmanuel Kalk. Coleman Elridge.
Here.
Mary Hammond. I know Mary's there.
Here.
David Lee.
Here.
Terry Manuel. Sheila Mason. I believe I saw Sheila on there.
It's on page 2.
Her audio is muted. Mark Nykirk.
Here.
Wayne Ongst.
Here.
Geneva Paris.
Here.
Tip Richmond.
Here.
Julie Skotsky.
Here.
Kevin Smith.
Here.
Laura Suttles.
Here.
Cynthia Torp.
Here.
Judge Tommy Turner. And Joe Wolford.
Here.
We also have guest of Secretary Mike Berry from the Tourism, Arts and Heritage Cabinet.
Here.
And I've got several staff that are on the call as well. Jessica Stavros and Jody Lewis. I believe I saw Louise Jones.
Here.
Doug High.
Here.
Stuart Sanders.
Hello, I'm here.
And Teresa Stivers. And Dana Zinger. I see Dana, sorry.
Hi, here.
Did I miss anyone?
Scott, this is Sheila. I'm here.
Great. So
I
Jennifer,
think
believe you have-
Linda Redmond is also on.
Oh, thank you. So Jennifer, you have a quorum.
Excellent. And it looks like we need a motion for the approval of the minutes from the January 17th board meeting.
So moved.
We have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Teresa, are you being able to see those to record them? Scott?
The first was Cynthia.
She asked who seconded.
Mindy Barfield.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Okay, all those in, oh, Scott, wait a minute. Do we have to do a roll call on all of these?
I'm not aware of that. I don't believe so. The
Teresa
previous
said
meeting I was
so.
in, I'm seeing a negative from Secretary Berry, and I'm going to take his lead because I know he's been doing these.
Okay, in that case, let's be really careful about that. I think that the minutes are safe, but let's be careful about that on some other votes. All those in favor can say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay. Pull up my, 1 second here. We have a joint resolution. Can you lead us through that, Scott?
I can. Let me see if I can pull that up directly. It would help if I was in the right folder for this. I don't know if many of you know Jim Shepard. He recently passed away. He's been a long time supporter of the Kentucky Historical Society. Back in, I believe it was 1998, he was actually the board president when the Kentucky History Center was actually built. And so went through a lot of the work to get the support for the building being created. After his role as the president, he was also part of the initial founding of the foundation. I'm going to kind of look at David Smith. I don't know, David, if you knew Jim, I know for his role in the foundation, if you would maybe want to say a few things, and then I think, Jennifer, it might be appropriate to actually read the resolution into our minutes.
Well, as we discussed at our foundation board meeting this morning, Jim was just a prince of a guy, if you knew him. Charming, gracious, keen sense of history, including, as reflected in the resolution, authoring some historical work. And as Scott just said, he was at the helm when the center itself was coming together. So he had an extraordinary contribution and was on our foundation board, I guess, on the order of 20 plus years. And was just a delightful man to have known, and we're all very much in his debt.
And I spoke with his son, Josh. Josh had called to get some information about his role and felt it was just so appropriate to be able to make sure that was included in his remembrance, that he was so proud of his role in supporting Kentucky history. So if you all would bear with me, I just think it would be appropriate to read the resolution into our minutes, if that's okay.
Thank you.
The resolution in honor of and tribute to James Walter Shepard Jr. Whereas James Jim Walter Shepard Jr. lived a life of service dedicated to his family, his profession, his country, and the Commonwealth of Kentucky. And whereas Jim cherished and celebrated his family's history and the history of Kentucky, and researched and authored George Dillard Shepard, Kentucky Pioneer Soldier Forever, and the genealogy of Franklin Asbury. And whereas his commitment to using the past to fashion a better future for Kentucky led to his enduring service as a member of the president of the Kentucky Historical Society Board from 1998 to 2000, and as director emeritus of the Kentucky Historical Society Foundation Board from 2000 to 2020. And whereas his committed leadership and support as an Abraham Lincoln Society member helped secure the necessary funding to ensure students, teachers, scholars, and the public have access to Kentucky's stories. And whereas his humor, hard work, selfless commitment, and love of Kentucky endeared him to all who had the pleasure to know him. Therefore, be it resolved that the officers and members of the Kentucky Historical Society Governing Board and the Kentucky Historical Society Foundation Board of Directors wish to express their heartfelt and sincere condolences to his wife, Lynn Sanford Shepard, his daughter, Melinda Asbury Shepard, his son, James Joss Shepard III, and all his other family and friends. We are proud to have known and interacted with such a talented, dedicated, and visionary individual. In recognition of his many sacrifices on behalf of others, the Board of Directors of the Kentucky Historical Society and the Kentucky Historical Society Foundation dedicate this resolution in honor and tribute to a dear friend and noble Kentuckian, Jim Shepard.
Thank you, Scott. Do we need a motion on this and votes?
Teresa says yes.
Okay,
Can we do it by acclamation?
yes.
I move that we enter that resolution adopted by acclamation.
We had a
Second.
second. Thank you. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Thank you. Okay, Scott, I believe you're up next with the executive director's report.
Sure. And I appreciate everybody's patience getting started. Tommy's still trying to get connected on. I'll try to be as brief as we can because I'm sure everybody's very familiar with the challenges and things that we're facing, having gone into a quarantine mode. So I wanted to give you some updates as to where we are today, kind of how we got here and what some of our ideas are for the future at a very, very top level. We began obviously in March, like most other places, walking ourselves back into a different operating plan, trying to always be aware of visitor safety and staff safety as we went through this. It became very apparent very quick that every moment we changed or thought we had a new situation stabilized, it would change again. What we've arrived to is just about the majority of our staff are telecommuting at this point. Which has been very, very good and very helpful. We have lots of services that we can provide, not having to be on the physical site. For those who do not have telecommuting abilities, we have found work for them to do either on site. So we do have 3 or 4 people who do report in each day to the building, and that actually varies. So it's not always the same group of people. It's a big building, so we're able to keep very good, safe social distancing. And keeping them working towards the betterment of things that we need to do for KHS. Of those that, particularly some of our frontline staff, where they couldn't come into work, we needed them to be telecommuting. We quickly retrained them on various aspects, and I'll talk about these in a minute, that allow them to support the processing of collections and of just different work that, quite frankly, have been a backlog for us that we can just never get to. So a lot of them have been working from home on those elements. Also have to give a shout out to Charles Higginbotham, because he quickly got our staff up and running on all the telecommuting. So a lot of us have personal devices. I'm actually using my daughter's 2012 laptop computer to do this kind of stuff. But he's got us all set up, and I think, quite frankly, we were running really smoothly within about 10 days. And I just can't express my appreciation enough because, as you all know, there was a lot of anxiety going on, and we were able to just swoop right in and get people up and working and deliver that message that we're going to get through this. We did release some contract workers, unfortunately, that were frontline folks that we just couldn't retain in this scenario, but all other staff, I think we're going to be good to keep them working all the way to the end of the fiscal year at least. And I actually hope beyond that. They're really contributing some really good work for us. And I'll go more into what some of that detail is, but that's kind of where we stand right now. I think we're going to, if you look at our total operations, our in-person services are only about 1/3 of what we do. And so we've been able to modify some of those elements, some of our library service elements to keep serving the public as we can. And we've had some great results from that. And then where we were ongoing, like the register, for example, that work continues to go. Research on Kentucky history continues to happen. And so that's kind of our operational element and update that I wanted to give you. You also, any questions at that point? Let me pause.
Scott, the folks who are reporting into the History Center, what are they doing?
A lot of it is quite, you always have that cleanup project that you want to get done. So we have some folks doing maintenance and repair. We did have 2 ongoing HVAC projects. So they were replacing chillers in the Thomas T. Clark Center for Kentucky History. And there was an HVAC project going on at the Old State Capitol. So we still have folks coming in to check in and work with contractors on those. And then Some of it is just our collection stewardship. When we were asked what essential staff would be, we do follow emergency protocols, although we typically are anticipating, tornadoes, floods, or what have you. We did fall back on our emergency protocols that require us to go in and check collections and collection conditions at all times. So we do have staff that come in daily and are at least going in and laying eyes on all of our historic assets and making sure that they continue to be in a safe environment. And we also have to be prepared if we got hit with a double whammy, since it is spring and it is tornado season. Always wanting to make sure that we're prepared, that should we need to react to help protect our collection and our staff, that we've got everything set up and ready to do that.
Thank you.
There are no other questions. The next piece I wanted to point out is that we sent to you was a document called KHS Awareness Campaign, and it is a draft document. On that awareness piece, and I'm not going to read through it in its totality. For some of our newer board members, we conducted a joint board meeting some time ago, and one of the key elements that came out of that and has been driving us our strategic plan is we're not convinced that KHS is as well recognized out there in the public as it can be or as it should be. And it wasn't just a matter of just going out and announcing our presence even more. I think we do need to have a lot more of a strategic approach to this. So the team is working on developing this awareness campaign, which will really focus on just getting our message out. And so the piece that you have in front of you focuses in on not just a rebranding. It's not even a rebranding. We think we have a very strong brand, but it's about how do we put ourselves out there for greater impact. One of the elements that you'll have seen that's really benefited us during the quarantine, but was ongoing, was this relationship with WTVQ. And I've mentioned this in previous reports. We were filming Kentucky History Treasures and also had almost open access to any kind of time we wanted to promote a program, to get onto their morning shows and noon shows, or even them coming to the Kentucky History Center to talk with our staff about those programs. Well, Doug and team, and I see Doug's there, and I might let him even chime in on this. We've expanded this now. Very excited that this partnership program will extend over to WHAS in Louisville. So the same kind of conditions that they're going to be broadcasting Kentucky History Treasures. And if you haven't seen those videos, they're available on our website. They're available on WTVQ's website. But with the quarantine, the initial plan was for them to run through the whole schedule and series of Kentucky History Treasures, and then we would be able to make them more publicly available. WTVQ immediately, when we were going into the quarantine, allowed us to go ahead and start promoting those right away. So again, it's a great moment for us to be able to get the Kentucky Historical Society message out there. And it's not so much a content delivery, but it's about, we have these wonderful Kentucky history treasures, and this is one method that we'll share them with you. So again, I don't want to read off the whole document, but I don't know if there's any questions about how we're going about raising the profile of the Kentucky Historical Society.
Scott, I was able to join you, and I finally texted a friend of mine who I have used Zoom probably a dozen times over the last week, no issues of any type. And I finally texted him and said, hey, what's the deal? I keep getting these error messages, went on and on and on. And he said, are you on a network? I said, yes. He said, go and dump Zoom on anything that is linked into your network and then reload it. So I had to go dump it on my computer and reload it. I had to dump it on my cell phone and reload it. And I dumped it on my iPad and reloaded it. And then it worked. Now, what's going on? I have no idea, but it's working now because I dumped it and reloaded it. So something was wrong with Zoom, I guess.
Well, we're glad to have you. Judge Turner, we're just about midway through. I was just giving a report of things that are going on for the Historical Society. The next piece I wanted to talk about was where we are programmatically right now. In my last monthly report to you all, I just mentioned that we were just on the edge of kicking off our spring season, which many of you might know or might recall. This is our heyday. This is when we really get up and going. We were just having school groups coming in. The National History Day season was getting kicked off into full gear. So this was our bread and butter season, and to have to shut it all down at a moment's notice kept us scrambling, but the team really pivoted. And like I said, we went to this virtual platform for a lot of things. So the pieces I wanted to point out to you all was one, started off a Tuesday, Thursday virtual tour that's available, that streams on our YouTube, or I'm sorry, on our Facebook Live network. I don't know how many of you, I know some of you have attended and watched some of the tours there. The very first one was an Old State Capitol tour, and I think we hit close to 100 viewers. And I know we now regularly have school groups, entire school classrooms that log on to watch the tour videos. So the response was to fill the gap for where we were going to have groups coming and touring the building. Could we create something that kind of mimicked that? And we're also finding a lot of general visitors who are jumping onto that. That also led to a conversation about, we had a lot of digital and virtual assets that were kind of spread across our webpage and in our other elements. Could we aggregate them into one place for visitors to come and find, to be able to utilize? And so you can find that on our website. If you need me to send you the link to that so you can see how that's working, I'd be happy to do it. But the piece I really want to point out is, because it goes back to old virtual exhibits, it goes back to all the things on the research catalogs, a wide variety of things, that a lot of the videos that we already have, a wide variety of things. But Stuart and Greg and Dana and the team also created a virtual visitor page, which aggregates all them. But they also reached out to local history organizations and asked, what digital assets are you putting up online, and can we help promote those for you? And I think that was an awesome move, because when we say we want to be the leader in Kentucky history education and helping our local history organizations, it provided a one-stop shop for visitors to be able to come in and help promote them as well. So I know that there was a huge response. I know the Filsons joined in on this. And a lot of, there's a long list of places there that is just literally pointing towards the digital elements that they're putting on there. Another proud moment was, as we were scaling down, we wanted to maintain a commitment to our research staff, to our research folks, so both genealogists, professional historians, and what have you. And so the library team actually is bringing in, they're doing telecommuting, but they're answering research questions and things by email and by phone call. So they're checking in messages or having them redirected to their home phones. And they also send one person in a day, Monday through Friday, or is it Tuesday through Saturday, I'm sorry, to actually pull material that's not digitized. So we're trying our best to serve those folks that are asking for material to be available. And if it can't be, we're sending staff in to do the research and to grab the material and try to get it out to them. It's not a huge number of impact people, but I think the idea that we're still there for them has been really important. And I can't express my appreciation for the staff enough to go through that sacrifice to make sure they're still coming in to do that. The last piece I wanted to highlight on our current engagement strategies was a National History Day. I know we have several judges on the call for National History Day, but this was Jennifer and Claire and the entire team. If you're familiar with National History Day, it starts off at a school level and students basically create projects, and it's a competition based upon their own research. It's a very self-directed kind of learning opportunity, but they get to also put it into competition. We were just beginning, we had finished doing school competitions. There's only a few of them, but we were just beginning regional competitions when this hit. And the team had already started working out a plan on how to make these virtual. We concluded the season, and I can't remember how many virtual pieces they ended up doing, but we ended up engaging close to 500 students through virtual regional contests, 48 teachers. We had 51 volunteer judges still help us out with National History Day. This is one of those defining moments to where they really rose up to the occasion and was able to make this work. In fact, our team is being asked by the National History Day folks for the national competition to jump in and help administer their virtual contest. So again, when the schools and the teachers were struggling for getting their NTI work up and getting everything going, National History Day was still there for them, and kudos to those teachers who honored the commitment to these students that they would have a chance to have their projects heard. And really a great moment for the KHS staff and for those students to be able to complete that. A couple more things I wanted to give out to, just to let you guys know. We do have some staffing reports I wanted to give you through the course of this leading up to it. I want to welcome Jessica Stavros, our new deputy director. She's waving. Jessica joined us in the midst of this. We were trying to get her started before this and was being nice to let her exit her former employer a little bit more gracefully. And in the course of that, it kind of ran us into the quarantine. But Jessica, as many of you know, and many of you were part of the interview process, is a much needed addition to the team. And she's jumped right in on membership, on a lot of our communication plans and multiple things. So Jessica, I don't know if you want to introduce yourself to the entire group.
I'm Jessica. I'm very nice to be here. I will say I started on April Fool's Day and I'm still here. So I'm really excited about that. And I actually have come into the office several days just to get myself acquainted with the building. It's been nice to wander around and get lost and have nobody see me looking like I don't know where I'm going. So I've definitely hit the ground running. It's really nice to be here. Thanks for having me.
And just for background, I know we shared this at one time before, but Jessica comes to us from the Indiana State Museum system. She was the regional director of sites down in Southern Indiana, but she's lives near Audubon Park in Louisville, right?
Mm-hmm.
She's in Louisville.
Correct.
So we have another great Kentuckian joining the team. And very proud to do that. We also have two other people I want to make you aware of. Daniel Burge is an associate editor and will be working on the Register. This is a long time position we've been trying to get filled after a couple unsuccessful attempts. Daniel's going to join us May 16th. We delayed his start date. He's finishing his work down at the University of Alabama, I believe. I'm looking at Louise to see if I'm getting that right. And then another one is Andrew Washburn will be coming in as a curator for KHS. Andrew is going to have gone through a long process. He comes to us by way of the Alaska Museum system. So yeah, I saw some raised eyebrows there. So we immediately, Andrew was originally going to start April 16th, yesterday. And because of the difficulty in getting him across the Canadian border and back into the US and the travel, he's agreed to delay until May 16th. So 3 very big hires that we've talked about for a long time. I'm also happy to announce that Kaylee Castro Bracco is now a full-time library technician. She was part-time as a collection specialist. And so she has been promoted up in the team. And we still have active searches going on for the Kentucky Civil War Governors of Kentucky Research Associate, which I believe we have a hire identified for that one. They hope to have them on coming in May 16th. But we're still holding on a visitor services associate for obvious reasons, and also our director of finance and operations. I'm also really disappointed to have to announce that Beth Carter, our registrar, tendered her resignation 2 weeks ago, and she has started a new job over with the Kentucky Department of Education as of today. So that is my staffing report. I think I'm going to turn it over to Doug at this point to let me entertain questions about anything that I've covered there before I turn it over to Doug for a foundation report. Take it away, Doug.
Okay, Scott, thanks. Good afternoon, folks, from your foundation headquarters here. We're in lockstep with Scott and the building in terms of our COVID footprint. We have we're keeping one person in the office every work day for just a couple hours to make sure that we're getting the mail open. There's always a few checks in there, which is nice, even in times like this, making those deposits and returning those phone calls and getting signed correspondence out to membership. So we haven't missed a beat on the foundation ops side. Obviously, not a great time to be asking corporations and folks for large sums of money for sponsorships, especially given the fact that most of our programming is in a holding pattern right now. So we chose to look at this as an opportunity. I mean, how often do you get the chance to hit pause and be liberated from the from the task of raising money? So we're looking at other tent poles that the foundation has of equal importance to sponsorship and to fundraising. Our membership program, and folks, we've talked about this in other board meetings, really needed some TLC. And in my 1 year here, I was really focusing on outreach through building our television network with Kentucky History Treasures and through sponsorship sales. So we were kind of letting membership coast, and I was trying to figure out exactly where we were with it. Well, we've used these past 5 weeks, and as Scott mentioned, we have great work at home interconnectivity now. We're doing about 2 hours a day on video with the leadership team, and we are really tearing apart membership from the keel up and trying to figure out, most importantly, what's our messaging here, and how do we let people know the value of an individual or a family membership. And I think that's where we've gotten into the tall weeds. So we do have a really robust program in place right now between Scott's team and myself on the foundation in terms of reworking how we sell membership and what the value of that membership is. So expect to see new messaging coming out very soon on how we tackle membership moving forward. A very big project for us. And right now we've got the time to work on it, which is great. Scott also mentioned an awareness campaign. That really was born from a foundation, our last foundation meeting in January, where one of our new members, many of you know, Mary Quinn Raymer, who runs Visit Lex. I've known her for 20 years, a good friend and a marketing genius, I'll go ahead and say it. She challenged us with, you're throwing a lot of darts at the board here with, you're trying some social media, you're trying different aspects, but how well do you think people truly understand your brand and all the different things that you do? Sometimes we promote the history campus with 3 different buildings. Sometimes we promote, you got to be a member or you're missing out. So, we feel like we really just need to all circle the wagons here and build a very robust awareness campaign for 2020 and beyond. And that's not just, how much TV, radio, print. I mean, that's also a very hearty role for all of us on both boards to take an active role in being a good ambassador for KHS and for Kentucky history. So again, there's going to be a lot of new product coming out about this awareness campaign and how we all have a really important role to play. Other updates I can give you, we've talked about the Triple Crown Trail program in the past that the foundation is taking the lead on, and Scott's team and the folks in the building have just been doing an amazing job in terms of research. At this point, we're not able to roll it out this fall like we originally intended, and so we're looking at the components there and trying to figure out what we can do right now. There are 9 farms that are going to be a part of this Triple Crown Trail, and part of the project was to make sure that we had a new Triple Crown Trail, say that 5 times, sign, a marker sign in front of each farm. So maybe this is phase 1. That's something that we could potentially work on right now, given these very uncharted waters we're in. But we had a very productive foundation board meeting this morning and got a lot of good ideas and good directions on how to proceed on this front. So all that to say, we are still moving forward on building the Kentucky Historical Society's Triple Crown Trail. And we'll be talking about that as time goes on. Only other note I had here, Scott already covered. We're delighted to welcome WHAS Louisville into the fold. They're going to be running our Kentucky History Treasure series during their morning newscast once a week. We're looking at a mid-May launch for that. And we've got 25 of those right now, and we're hoping to do a second season starting this fall. So we've got hundreds and hundreds of great stories to tell, and they're waiting to be told. So we're in a really good position given all the turbulence going on. I just attended a video conference with the Ohio Historical Society this week, and there are a lot of museums out there, folks, that, and I know you've been reading about this too, where, I mean, there are museums in serious trouble. Their entire business model has been upended. We are in a really great place. I mean, obviously, nobody likes to see the doors shuttered, but our deep investment this past year in television, and which is COVID-proof, and our new efforts in social media. And Scott mentioned those, and a tip of the hat to the marketing team. These, if you haven't seen them yet, these Facebook Live tours are fantastic. And we're trying to tag those now with membership asks and different messaging that we need to get out as well, because we're building an audience. So I think we're actually a leader at this point and a model for other museums and historic institutions to follow. Because yeah, what do you do when the door doesn't open anymore? But we're here, and we're excited. And if you have any questions for me on the foundation side, I'm happy to field them.
Thanks, Doug. Hey, I wanted to mention, some of y'all may not have noticed it, but there's a chat function on this. And I really appreciated something Coleman said that is an opportunity. He says, "Thanks for the educational resources during this time. My fortnight playing sons have gone from being forced to learn about Kentucky history to excited." And I'm sure there are many examples of young people who are engaged now with the Kentucky Historical Society who wouldn't have been otherwise. And that it could be a great opportunity to tell that story to potential donors. Hey, Tommy, you want to jump in and take over from me?
I can, Jennifer. It doesn't make any difference.
I'm glad you're here. It's
okay.
good.
I guess we would be at Scott and him giving us the finance report. You should have got a copy of that with your materials.
Sure. And Jennifer, let me back up and point something out that I overlooked, because it sounds like a crazy number, but I'm kind of looking for Stuart and the nod of affirmation. Our Facebook video live participation since we went into the virtual tours had a 35,000% increase. The numbers just jumped off the charts. I mean, and I think when we've done these before and things, we might get a few hundred participants. I think they've got to be averaging up some of them are up at 3,000 views. And those are not just people passing through them. I think we're getting actual views all the way through the entire video, which some of them are 35, 45 minutes, depends upon the visitor questions and the interaction we're getting. So again, that's and I appreciate Coleman's comment too, because I've gotten several comments from you all and from just other people. I wish I could share them all, and maybe we should. We'll find a way to get some of those comments out to you all, just what people are responding back to us, having provided those. So with that, I'm also kind of looking to see if Linda can at least join us audio-wise in case I misspeak. I'm not as well versed at doing these financial reports as Mac Brown is, and we didn't give our finance committee a chance to actually kind of go through this with us. Frankly, we've been working almost every day on trying to understand what the impact of doing the shutdown and the quarantine is going to have on us. Like I mentioned, we started right off with hitting it at the height of our school season, which would have been some of our highest earned revenue numbers coming in for ticket sales and admissions and things like that. my recollection is, and so you have the report, I believe, with you that looks at our from the far left going to the right, our FY20 current fiscal year budget. And then we had our current fiscal year to date, and then what we're forecasting for the fourth quarter, and then the combination of those so we can compare how we think we're going to end the fiscal year. Let me kind of go back to our third quarter. We were getting close to wrapping that up, but our fourth quarter is where we're going to take the biggest knock. Even in, I think just in school groups alone, it was $37,000 of earned revenue. And for those of you who've been on the board for a while, you know that the school group, this fourth quarter season is our bread and butter for school groups. Also, another big piece, because we were in session, and on the biennial session, we always kind of count on those rentals, facility rentals for groups that are hosting legislative receptions and things like that. And all those dried up almost immediately. So we had several big rentals. We actually only had forecasted us to the end of the fiscal year so far, but it's looking like we'll even lose all the ones for all the summer concert series and things like that. So earned revenue as far as rentals and facility rentals are taking some pretty big hits. However, rights and reproductions and royalty fees and things like that are continuing to hold pretty steady, which is good. That's about 20, just for the quarter alone, that's about $25,000. It comes in once a year, that, so we don't next to nothing. We also lost a fair amount of sponsorship dollars out of that end. So we're also looking at how that's going to impact the final request that we would make from them. So that number you won't see until we get into the fourth quarter, an update of what we anticipate that to be. Another big difference I think you might notice is we held our wages and salaries, our personnel numbers down pretty low. That is primarily the vacancy of the deputy director for so long. But then also with the vacancy of Ken Mitchell, the director of finance, and Laurel Harper both leaving. As soon as we got an indication that we were going to be looking at a financial deficit, I decided not to pursue hiring the director of finance right off the bat. And that resulted, or will by the end of the fiscal year, in about a $75,000 savings out of our general fund, which I would then argue that when you look at the very bottom, at the difference there, we're showing that we're trending at about $17,000 to the good. A lot of that's going to be because we held both those personnel dollars down, and then we're also not pursuing some spending in the fourth quarter that we had planned for exhibits and promotions. We had planned on doing a whole new banner replacement on the exterior of the building. If we're not going to be open to the public, I don't know that it's wise for us to go out and spend that kind of money right now. So anyhow, we're looking at some reduction expenses on our commodities end and our supplies end, which all relate to the exhibits and to the promotions.
Okay, anyone have any questions there for Scott?
Scott, do you expect a state budget reduction for the last quarter?
I do not. Thank you, Wayne, for asking that. Right now, I do not expect it. And I know Secretary Berry is on the call, but so far I haven't heard any indication of that. I know that the reason why my opinion is of that is the governor's budget as it came out pretty much was flat to what we had experienced in this past year. And then what was passed recently was fairly similar to that. So our FY21 budget that we're looking at was pretty much everything we had requested with all the defined calculations and things like that in there, minus some of the things that you've all heard about in the news. There's not the 1% raises for employees. And Linda, I don't know if you can chime in. There's something else I'm forgetting, but our next year's budget looks very similar to this year's budget from the state.
And you did provide to us, or I've got a copy of it here, the enacted budget that shows the 21-22, shows the amount, general fund, $6,456,700, restricted $893,300, and federal $170.
Yep.
So
just so you know, I mean, again, we have some newer folks on here. that first general fund number, a whole lot of that goes to our rent utilities and our basic services. Once you back that out, and if you back out our staff complement, that's pretty much our general fund. So we rely a lot on our earned revenue to do most of our programming support. And I'm always happy to talk more in detail. Typically, we would do that in a more in-person meeting about what goes in those numbers. But yeah, that's fairly consistent. One number that you might notice that seems a bit higher than normal is the 800, and I don't have it in front of me, 846,000 for the restricted fund. That has been an increase of what you've seen normally, and a lot of that is to give us that room to be able to bring foundation dollars over to spend on some major projects. We had made a strategic decision to do that in the second quarter, which would then mean that would roll over in future funding. So the restricted funds are all earned revenue and also our mechanism to be able to bring over private dollars into the state system. The federal number you see there, 170,000, I believe, is it?
Yes.
70 or 180. That's money in and out. That's NEH grants and an IMLS grant that we already have in hand. And if we get other, we will be applying for some NEH funds for other projects, but we're also kind of looking at, are we eligible to apply for some NEH funding related to the COVID-19 impact? And so if that was to happen, that number we would have to just get an appropriations increase for that, and that would happen.
Yeah. Okay, any questions? And of course, we'll have just a little more discussion about the upcoming budget right at the end of our meeting about what we need to do there. Scott, why don't you continue on and talk about the membership report?
Yes, I believe we emailed you out so there's two things I wanted to talk about on there. Yeah, sorry, I can't pull it up fast enough. As Doug mentioned, we're looking at so if you have the membership report in front of you, our membership totals right now are a total of about 1,178. Frankly, for an organization our size, that's not very good. So we've been looking a lot at why are we not retaining members, and how do we, as Doug mentioned, how do we recraft the message that it's not about a fee for service or a transactional relationship. I mean, I think we all know and all have our interest in the history, and the people that connect with us share that passion and interest. We want them to know that we're a membership organization, right? We all meet annually at the annual membership meeting to elect officers and to get people involved. To do that, you have to be a member of the Historical Society. You have to be somebody who is showing your passion for Kentucky history by joining our society, by joining our passionate history professionals and advocates. So that's the direction our message is going to go in, is that you should join not because you get free admission or not because you get a 10% discount in the gift shop, but because you want to be part of this group of folks. And I think we've seen that actually in the virtual interactions we're getting a lot of folks who are just really excited to be a part and appreciate that their state's historical society is recognizing their history. So our membership piece is really about clarifying our message and making sure we get that out there. And I think with that, we'll see results in more people statewide that want to join the society. And we also wanted to clarify what it means to be a member of the Historical Society. So, so yeah, with that, you'll see more to come with that. We have several different membership campaign pieces that we're going to do, but all that's wrapped up in somewhat of an overall awareness campaign that I referenced earlier.
Okay. Any questions regarding the membership report? I think, thank you, Scott. I think that Secretary Berry, he may still be on the call with us on the conference. Secretary, if you are still there, you have some information you would like to give us regarding the Tourism, Arts, and Heritage Cabinet.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Judge, and members of the governing board. First of all, I want to thank you all for inviting me to this meeting. I got an email from Scott a couple of weeks ago. He said, we have a meeting coming up. Who do you want to send? And my first thought with that was, well, I don't want to send anybody. I want to attend myself. I know it's probably been, and may have to be in the future, but it's probably been the practice that a deputy secretary or a representative attend a lot of these meetings. I've tried to attend personally or virtually, as this is, all of the meetings of the agencies so far, and I'm happy to be with you all today. I had a great tour and meeting with your executive director at the facility when it was still open. I even kept him there until about 6:30 with all my questions, and we were kind of dreaming big things. I am just so that you all know a little bit about me, I was in the governor's office during the tenure of Governor Martha Lane Collins. I was a kid right out of college. I went to Georgetown College, where I was a history minor. So I'm a little bit of a history buff. And so that's one of the reasons that I probably kept Scott there way too late that night. But I worked in the governor's office for almost 4 years. And back in those historic days, governors couldn't succeed themselves. So I went back to Louisville, where I'm a native, and worked for the next 32 years as with the Kentucky Derby Festival, where the last 22 of which I served as the CEO. I retired October 1st, was not going to do anything, sat on a beach for a bit in Florida, and one day, about 2 days after the election, my cell phone rang, and the governor-elect asked me if I would join Judge Turner and others on the transition team. And I thought, well, you know, that'll be kind of nice to see that side of it. We gave our transition report, and the governor said, "Can you hang back for a minute?" I was surprised to be asked to be the secretary. So I am excited about this opportunity. It is a challenging time for our cabinet. As you can imagine, and as you all are suffering, the fact that we are closed to the public, and so much of our cabinet is a retail cabinet, is concerning. I have to salute you all again. I've been following what you've been doing on Facebook and on social media, and trying to keep the outreach of the History Center and your agency open to the public virtually. This may not sound like anything that you can take much comfort in, but I will tell you, as I look at the numbers in the cabinet for parks, for the Kentucky Horse Park, for the Fair and Exposition Center and the Convention Center in downtown Louisville, et cetera, and I look at the millions of dollars that they are seeing in budgetary shortfalls just for this fiscal year, I really enjoyed your financial report a few minutes ago. It wasn't something that I had been seeing a lot of. So congratulations on staying with that. I just want to say, first of all, we're here from the cabinet to be a resource to you all. I plan to be actively involved and supportive of what the History Center and the Historical Society are doing and what they mean to the people of the Commonwealth. Scott, I'm going to ask you a quick question. Is it an appropriate time to talk any at all about the other thing that the budget did, where it had to do with this year's appropriations?
Yes, I think I had made the group's been aware. Are you referencing towards capital project funding?
Yes.
Yeah, I think that would be fine.
Okay. As some of you all may know, that this year's budget was an interesting experience. First of all, it's a one-year budget, which means we're all going to do this again next January and go through the budget process, when my guess would be hopefully we'll have a little bit better grasp on what the numbers are, and that could be a little challenging in itself. But the budget that was adopted, I think, was a very pragmatic budget, again, for the year starting July 1st, 2020, and go through June 30th, 2021. One of the notes that was made in the budget, and it affects the current budget year, not going forward, was that the legislature ultimately approved a budget that reassigns some dollars that were originally granted to the Kentucky Historical Society for a digitization project. And they've reassigned that to the Heritage Council. And I know that that wasn't the best of news for the Historical Society, and Scott and I had some conversations about it. And I know that there are some expenses that you all have incurred in that process so far that will need to be addressed before we get to the end of the fiscal year. I just want to tell you the cabinet is willing and expecting to work with you to address any of those expenses. And if there needs to be some additional dollars, I'll check the seat cushions at the cabinet office and see if there's any change in the seats, et cetera. But we will work with you all in addressing that. I can't really give you all of the details because I don't know them myself of why that action was suggested and why it was taken. But at this point, we realize that we have an obligation to you all and as well as an obligation to the Heritage Council. And we want to work to make it as much of a win-win, or maybe not a lose-lose for everybody. So I'll be happy to entertain any questions about that at this point. And Scott certainly understands it even a lot better than I do if you want to add anything to it.
Okay, anyone have any questions? Well, Secretary Berry, thank you so much for joining us, and we look forward to having you at our meetings in the future.
My pleasure. Thank you, Judge.
Thank you. Okay, Tressa, I know is on the conference with us, or was. I think she's still with us. And Tressa, would you like to give a report concerning the Kentucky Museums and Heritage Alliance?
Certainly. First, my background is not as nice as other people's since I'm in my car. Since my kids have to do their classwork on Zoom, not all three of us can get on Zoom at the same time at home. So I'm parked outside the public library. Anyway, the Kentucky Museums and Heritage Alliance had a conference, the annual conference, scheduled for June. And we have canceled that conference. We've made the public announcement. But what we hope to do is create smaller events. Our VP, Aaron Jensen at the Shaker Village, had said that all of the presenters that he spoke with were quite willing to do a smaller presentation, maybe virtually. He's kind of coordinating that now. One of them will be probably in Lexington if there is a face-to-face portion of it, and the other one will be somewhere else in the state. If it has to be wholly virtual, still later in the year, mid to late fall, then we'll revamp that for a wholly virtual experience. But we are planning on utilizing the research and presentations that we had lined up for June for a later time in the year. And that's pretty much the majority of what I have to report. As we know, closing the door of a lot of the museums, we're working with a really tight budget to begin with, is creating some very tense situations for folks. There have been, layoffs in some staffing. Obviously, not all kinds of museum work can be done off-site, but most museums are trying to work with their staff as well as they can. We're still trying to coordinate with our members, make sure that people are aware of those virtual opportunities and what people can access websites. So we're doing the best we can.
Certainly. Understand. Yeah, I can imagine of all of the organizations that are out there. Museums have been hit particularly hard because you rely on so much of your revenue as being walk-in revenue, either people viewing exhibits and participating, or retail sales through gift shops and that sort of thing. So it's, I know the folks that I've been involved with in terms of museums and the boards I sit on, it's really tough right now. And all we can ask is that everyone just try to hang in there. We'll get through this, as the governor says. We'll be all right. In the end, it's just going to be tough getting to that point. Okay, thank you so much. Next, we have the Kentucky Oral History Commission report, and John Wolford. Is John here with us?
I am.
Okay, John, thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm glad to make a report. The Kentucky Oral History Commission, the administrator is Sarah Schmidt, and she's been busy. One of the programs that she has been working on is Women in Government and Politics. She accepted 5 proposals since December, and they're for interviews with women who have been active in politics, government, and civic action. And she'll be supporting their ability during this period on with doing interviews and any other work online. She's also jumped right into the flow of this COVID-19 pandemic emergency by partnering with the Kentucky Folklife program and creating story circles, remote story circles, digitally recording them about Kentuckians' experiences with COVID-19. The plan is to parlay these story circles into oral history interviews and projects in the future. She's done some workshops as well. She presented a methodology workshop for the local chapter of the DAR in January. And in late March, just when the in-person interviews and meetings were being prohibited, Sarah very deftly pivoted to an online workshop for Kentuckians for the Commonwealth, presented as a webinar. It was very, very successful. It might be a good model for doing that in the future, even when we aren't in a pandemic. Earlier, she had written a grant for the Kentucky Colonels, which she'd received to re-outfit the digital lab in the oral history office, and the recording equipment and acoustic treatments. Well, the equipment came in, luckily, before all of this, and facilities finished the demolition and painting before KHS closed. It'll be ready for final touches once it opens up again. She is telecommuting and has been since the emergency measures were taken. And she's focusing on making interviews more accessible online. And it's a sort of a silver lining, because normally that's one of the things we really need to get done. And it would normally take a year or more for her to process and catalog and upload as many interviews as she has just since the beginning of this emergency. So she's done a lot of work making this far more accessible, which is all good. Also, she has been helping other KHS staff members to find work through her from home. So several KHS staff members have been trained to index interviews from home, and which helps the archival effort. Just this morning, I got off of another Zoom meeting with KOHC where we adjudicated grant applications, and we found some good ones to fund with the amount of money that we've been allocated. And on May 1st, the whole commission will be meeting. It'll probably be a short and sweet meeting, whose primary purpose this year will probably be to look at what was offered as grants to the applicants and approve them. And that is my report.
All right. Thanks, John. Anyone have any
Sure.
questions for John regarding the Oral History Commission? And John, as I have mentioned to Scott and others, you know, what we're going through right now, we're living a bit of history. Not long from now, people will be looking back on this time and learning from what's happened. They'll be studying it. They'll be seeing the effects that this situation had on our economy, on our lives, on us mentally, in all aspects. And so I told Scott, you know, one thing we just need to do is to document, record, grasp and grab as much of the history of this event as we can, so that it will be something that can be viewed by others beyond us to understand it.
And, you know, I applaud that. It shows another leadership position with KHS. I at one point worked for the Missouri Historical Society when they had the historic flood in 1993. And I suggested to them that this is living history. We need to document this. This is ongoing. And it was shot down because the idea typically is that history is what happened in the past. But if we're recording it now, as Sarah really is spearheading that, we will have, you know, immediate responses. That's invaluable.
Exactly. And if it's what's happened in the past, all you have to do is set it on the shelf. And guess what? Next year is. This is the past next year.
That's
so
right.
Absolutely. But I just, you know, I think we're going to learn a lot about this situation, learn a lot about ourselves, learn a lot about our internal strength and the strength of our state virtually by what has happened here. So I think there's a lot of things that can come from this that we will learn. And it's a terrible thing to have to be going through right now, but maybe we could learn things that will make it better for the future.
That's right.
All right. Thank you so much, John.
Sure.
Next on our agenda, we do have new business, and it's just to let you know that in late May, we will probably have to schedule some sort of a emergency meeting, a meeting for us to discuss the budget. Hopefully at that time, we'll have a better handle on some things in terms of those numbers of our budget that are the numbers that we help create via our rentals of the facility or whatever. We'll know more about where we are and what the future looks like for us. And I'm very hopeful that some of these events that have that were supposed to take place there in the spring that were canceled, I'm hoping that they will come in and say, well, let's do them late summer or in the fall. And so I'm hopeful that maybe some gaps that we have in our schedule can be plugged with events and activities that will help maybe fill a little of the gap that we're afraid we're going to feel. So Scott, we just need to look at all those potential and see what's out there.
And Judge Turner, that's exactly why, you know, we'd recommend doing an emergency meeting. It's called an emergency meeting, but with the flexibility that we've been given to do these video conference meetings, it makes it easier for us to get everybody together. Typically what would happen at our April board meeting is we would have given you a framework for what we think our FY21 budget would have looked like. And frankly, that's just impossible. Not that we're close. We're close to being able to do that. But I think given the chance that we can do a late May meeting, we can get some more unknowns answered for us, and then maybe even think about what our change could be going forward. You know, if this goes on to continue to be an operational change for the next 18 months, we could look at alternates that we would want to work into the budget to be able to allow us to have a really good sense. Plus, this gives us more time to work with the foundation to determine what they think their fundraising capacity is going to look like, and answer some other questions. So again, we could come to you late May with a much more with hopefully less uncertainty into a budget.
Absolutely. Certainly. And you'll also notice there that we do have our regularly scheduled governing board meeting July 17th and October 16th. And then, of course, our annual meeting. You'll see that noted at the bottom of your agenda. So that is all the agenda items we have for today. Scott, anything else you would like to say before we wrap up our meeting?
Just that I can't express how much I appreciate you all sticking with us. The team and I are working on trying to give you more frequent communications as to what was going on. I don't want to be an apologist, but quite frankly, I think in one of the times I kept trying to do it, and every time I would pause to deal with something else, the whole situation had changed again. And so I was back to rewriting it. And so it got really difficult to give you updates because it was just continuing to change. I think as we're going forward, I'm feeling confident the team has got their legs underneath them, and they have been incredibly supportive of all the things that are going on. So maybe we can start to get into a routine of giving you at least a monthly update as to what's going on with us, not just programmatically, but operationally, because it's really important for us to have you out there as our advocates for Kentucky history. And we just need to make sure that we don't lose that momentum that we had going before all this got started.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you. And thank all of you. We had about 31 or 2 participants that have been involved with this meeting today. And I thank all of you for taking time and being a part of it. I apologize for the extended time it took me to get connected to you and the problem I had with Zoom. Hopefully I won't have that again, but I know how to fix it now if it does happen. And don't believe everything you see on Zoom, because there's a little icon on there. You touch it and it says touch up appearance. Well, I did it and it didn't help a darn bit. So don't believe Zoom. I can tell you, I still look the same. So anyhow, well, folks, thank you.
One more thing.
Yes.
I do have one more thing, and I'm going to actually impose on Macaulay, if she wouldn't mind, if she thinks it's appropriate. We had a nice breakthrough with Chris Morris on a project that we've been trying to do for a year. Macaulay, I don't know if you'd want to update the group as to what's going on.
Well, you could actually probably speak to it better than I can, but what Scott's talking about, and this is a really good idea that he and Chris Morris, our master distiller, had was, so Brown-Forman is celebrating its 150th anniversary right now. Perfect time to be celebrating a major anniversary during a global pandemic. And actually, honestly, since I've been planning the company's 150th anniversary for the past couple of years, I should have known that something like this would happen, because when we went into our 50th, that was the first year of Prohibition. When we came out of World War II, that's when we turned 75. When we turned 100, that was the beginning of the downturn of brown spirits and bourbon. And so we should have known that something would happen in 150. So anyway, that I digress. But yeah, so we have a plan. I think it ended up being, was either like 3 or 6 barrels, I think, that we've identified. 3 barrels. Okay. So we're going to lay down 3 barrels of whiskey this year. And what we'll do is we will, I think we're going to do that at our Shively location. Do you know that for sure?
I don't.
Or is that going to be I'm not sure. It's either in Louisville and Shively, or it's out at Woodford. And in 6 years, when the U.S. turns, I guess, 250, we will have an opportunity to then bottle that product. And so we'll have something that, started in Brown-Forman's 150th and is then bottled in the company's 250th. So it could be a really cool story and a really interesting, nice 6-year-old bottle of bourbon. I'm sure it'll be quite tasty.
Wow.
And this is based upon a historic recipe that we have in our collection from Catherine Carpenter. And I haven't invested myself into the whole story, but Catherine Carpenter, the recipe itself really, I don't think would have been a bourbon at the time it was created. It was like 1813, maybe. I'm looking at Louise. She's muted. It's a very early bourbon. It's a very early spirit that is being created here. And the other part of this is Catherine Carpenter's story. And I don't want to go on and on about it, but it has such a great piece for us and a great opportunity. Not just, so it's a female entrepreneur that at this time period, and her connections to the Brown family. She has connections to the Revolutionary War. She has a husband who dies at the Battle of Blue Lakes. she maintains the business and remarries, and that husband dies, and she buys the property back from his children, and continues on and has all this wonderful thing. And in fact, we published some stuff about Catherine Carpenter, about how astute she was in her business transactions. Well, in the research of this, we come to find out that Catherine Carpenter cannot read and write. And so in this process, who's doing the documenting of this company? Don't know. I don't want to make the assumptions, but we do know that she was also a slave owner. And so her interaction with her enslaved servant, she highly trusted them. So we might have an opportunity to highlight a story of this enslaved servant who played a big part of this early distilling history and this entrepreneurship that was going on in Kentucky. And so how we want to use that going forward, I think it's just going to be an incredibly compelling story, because it is also a frontier story. So the 250th anniversary of the U.S., this will be a great opportunity to highlight the multicultural aspect of Kentucky's history at that time. So really looking forward to it. And Chris sends really short emails. It's really interesting.
Very short emails, and he sends them really quickly. I'll get emails from him like in the middle of the night, and I'm just like, I don't know what you're talking about. So
well, I was sitting with my family, actually. I just get this email, and I'm one of those people, I'll pop it up and check it out. And I was like, oh my gosh, we're making a bourbon. So very exciting. And I'm really excited that Brown-Forman and Mac Brown and Chris and everybody saw this great opportunity, not just for Brown-Forman, but also for the Kentucky Historical Society and the foundation. I think, as Chris put it, you will have a very complicated and expensive bourbon when you are done. So we're looking forward to finding out a way to make this a good fundraising opportunity.
He's very good at producing those. So, you've got the right guy working on the complicated and the expensive side.
So with that note, Judge Turner, I think that is all of my announcements.
Okay, well, thank you all so much. Anybody have anything else they would like to say?
Hey, I wanted to mention that to Macaulay, I don't know if the timing is so bad for the 150th anniversary, because I heard yesterday that alcohol consumption is way up.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
At home drinking.
That's definitely true. Yeah, I mean, our friends in the bars and restaurants are getting hit really, really hard, but our sales have gone through the roof in the package stores. And even, I don't know if you guys have ever used Drizzly, but it is the easiest way to buy booze ever. And it's an app you can
Spell that.
What's that?
Spell it.
Brizly.
Okay.
Check it out. Get some booze delivered to your front door.
Does that reach rural Kentucky?
Oh yeah, it's all over the state.
Okay.
I believe. Let me check.
Yeah. Cool.
Great
Well,
idea.
Macaulay, speaking of alcohol consumption there, I'll just tell a quick story and then we'll sign off. I went into a gas station the other day. There was a lady standing on the other side of the station, the inside of the station there, and she hollered at me and she said, "Judge, I haven't seen you for 2 or 3 years." And I said, "Yeah." And she said, "Well, you're like me. You gained a little weight." And I said, "Well, yes, ma'am, I have, but I'm working on trying to get it off." And she said, "Well, me too." She said, "I started gaining weight when I stopped chewing tobacco." I said, "Oh, you did?" And she said, "Yeah." And then she said, "But we was at my husband's aunt's back several months ago and said, she's almost 100. And I asked her, 'What's the secret to living so long?' And she told me, said, 'Well, I think it's because I drink a pint of Jack Daniels and a 6-pack of beer every week.' And said, I told her, 'Well, honey, if that's all it takes, I'm going to make it to 200.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Well, folks, thank you all again so much. And is there a motion to adjourn this meeting?
I move that we adjourn.
Motion has been made, and there is a second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Thank you all so much, and we look forward to chatting again soon.
Thanks, you all.
God bless. Bye-bye.
Macaulay,
Everybody.
Yes.
what was that again? I still didn't catch it. Drizzly?
Drizzly. D as in dog.
Oh.
R-I-Z-L-Y.